Welcome to More Than Renovating, a renovate and real estate podcast. Our founder, Belinda Smith, talks to industry experts to provide you with the knowledge and information you need to make renovating for love and profit your reality. Belinda will also chat to some of her Renovation Mastery members, who are just everyday people doing extraordinary things, following their passions in the renovation and property space. So, let's jump straight into the episode. Enjoy.
Today's episode of the podcast, More Than Renovating, I'm just going to be sharing what it's like to start with no money. So the topic of today is how to start renovating with no money. And I might even pop in brackets there, almost no money, because most people have, a few $100s or a few $1,000s or something like that they can lean on if something like their fridge goes broke, right? So most of us have a few hundred, perhaps a couple of thousand. But the people I'm really speaking to right now are the youngsters trying to get a start. They are people which are many, or most of the population really, I think, who are living from one pay to the next. These interest rates hikes and the things that are going on in the market right now, not helping when many of us are trying to just make it from one paycheck, as they say, payday to the next, trying to keep on top of bills. Electricity prices are climbing, the price of gas is climbing, our vehicles cost us more, the road tolls cost us more, doctors are no longer bulk billing. Like just everywhere we look right now, we feel like we're being hit by an extra expense. If you're paying rent alongside all of those extra expenses and you want your landlord to freeze those rents, your landlord may not be in a position to freeze those rents. As much as your landlord is probably not trying to hurt you, at the same time, all of their costs have gone up. So understand that most landlords in this country are just mums and dads investors who are trying to buy one, maybe two investment properties so that they don't have to rely on the old age pension, the government pension when they reach retirement age. And most of those people are also living paycheck to paycheck. So to say, I want the rents frozen because I'm a tenant and the rents keep going up, don't forget what it's like to sit in the shoes of a landlord whose interest rates have gone up from, say, $3,000 a month in repayments to $4,500 a month in repayments in that same amount of time. So, there's just this thing happening at the moment where everyone is impacted. But here's my thoughts on that. I would hate to surrender. I would hate to be renting right now or to be a young person thinking about getting a start in the property market and push it aside like it's never going to happen, like it's all too hard, like I don't have any money, so I can't get a start, like I just have to rent because I'll never, ever become a property owner. I actually call BS on that. On a number of reasons, or for a number of reasons. I think that improving our finances is not so much what's happening to us or by the market to us or by our surroundings to us or how much we're earning. Like, I don't think it's to do with that. I actually think it's what we choose to do, how we choose to react, how we choose to spend our money, and how we choose to spend our time. I'm a firm believer that we can't have it all. I think a few generations ago, when my mum was, what did Dad say one day? He said, shoes at school were not for everyone. Shoes were a luxury. They weren't a given. And so there are some kids, including him, who went through the winters at Newtown Public School in Sydney with no shoes because they just couldn't afford it. So their generation has seen times where that's absolute poverty. Like, that is bread and dripping for dinner because there's just no way of buying any kind of meat or any kind of vegetable. It's just survival. Straight after the Depression, survival, and during the Depression, right? So that's that generation who managed to get a start, who were lucky enough that they had some boom times behind them as well, which means that most of them, if they owned property, did quite well. Also, they weren't hit by the daily expenses that we have. We have, internet expenses and telephone expenses and all of these things that enable us to live life at a higher level. And I think life has never been better. But at the same time, they didn't have those expenses, those everyday monthly expenses that we have to cover. So let's break it down. It comes down to personal choice, and at some stage, something's got to give. And when I say something's got to give, someone has to give up something to get a start. It's as simple as that, and I don't think there's any avoiding it. Unless someone is going to gift you a start, I think at some point you on your own, or perhaps a partner, need to sit down and get very, very serious about all of your outgoing expenses. The easiest way to do it is to downsize the limit on your credit card, or pretend you don't have a credit card. I love credit cards, so I'll never give mine up. You know, when people say they cut theirs up, I think that's just silly. I think we've all got plenty of self-control if we actually focus on it. So I would pay off a credit card and then just sit there and say, I'm not going to put anything on that credit card for the next 3 months, or I'm not going to allow my credit card debt to increase over the next 3 months, and I'm going to fight hard to pay that down first. So that's the first thing, is just getting on top of our spending. It's our spending. It's money in and money out. It's always money in and money out. So we have to make a start. That start requires some discipline. That discipline is all around looking brutally at our current financial position and where we have all of this discretionary money just going out the door. If you were to start to write down every time you bought a coffee, then you would see how much money goes on coffee. If you were to write down every time you bought takeaway food, or ordered Uber Eats, or caught an Uber instead of a train, like all of those little things, they absolutely 100% add up. And I don't like it when people have to live tight forever, but here's the good news. You only have to do that for perhaps 1.5 years or 2 years, and you can make a significant change to where you're at financially. So I think everybody's got a good 18 months or 2 years in them. That's something that my parents did. It's something that Brett and I did. And I think that to give up and say, I'm happy renting, or the property ownership's never going to be for me, means you've given up on just applying some discipline to get that start you so deserve. You so deserve a good start. It's very, very easy to say, there's pain in saving like that. There's pain in living tight like that. So I don't like to feel pain like that. I'm just going to forget about it. And the best way to forget about it is by going on a holiday. When I go on a holiday, I forget that there's a whole life and a business and responsibilities at home, right? So a lot of people, instead of getting serious, will do the opposite, throw their hands up in the air and practice a form of escapism, and that is go on a holiday, which actually doesn't help. It just pushes things down the road a little bit. If you're watching this now and you choose to push potential home ownership down the road, or serious investing down the road by 1 year or 2, understand that you'll be paying $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 more, whatever. You'll be paying a lot more for your property if you push the so-called problem down the street a little bit further. Because every year properties are going up, and these interest rates, you know, they've been a bit wild, but they're all starting to settle. In the end, we have a very, very significant supply and demand problem in this country, in that we are desperately undersupplied, and there's a great big list of tenants and people wanting to buy property right now. And there are a whole bunch of builders who are sitting on their hands or treading very, very carefully because of lack of supply product. Like, there's a whole myriad of things going on at the moment that is affecting the amount of properties that are coming to market. And so those properties, when they do come to market, there are so many people after them, either to rent them or buy them. And it's all that demand that pushes prices up. So it's okay to say, let's ban bidding for rent. Let's ban rent bidding, or let's ban properties selling for way more than anyone expected when they hit the market. But all of that stuff is just a reality of the situation we find ourselves in. It's just reality. And like Dad used to say to me once, honey, you can't fight City Hall. In other words, you can't fight what's going on around you. These things are big and powerful and they play a role. And as much as you might get cranky or upset about the situation, there's no point, just getting cranky enough to throw your hands up in the air and say, that's it, I'm out. That's what I don't want you to do. I've had some really successful students inside my group, my Renovation Mastery group, start from very little, or perhaps start with some equity that they don't want to use or delve into. And everybody has their own level of risk, and that's fine. But I'm going to unpack exactly how I think, starting with very little money or absolutely nothing, how I think you can actually still do very, very well in the shortest amount of time. But I also don't want you to think, when I say the word shortest amount of time, that you'll go from zero to hero in, say, 12 months. It might take 5 to 10 years. But it also will take a lot longer than that if some of the habits that have led you to where you are right now, if those habits continue, then you're going to be where you are right now, probably in a worse situation in another 5 years or 10 years. So self-discipline is a lot of this. Getting a partner on the same page really helps, because there's nothing worse if you're a saver and you've got a partner who just throws money at anything. It's very, very difficult. So getting a partner on board really does help. And perhaps that might mean you go to a financial planner, or you go to, I actually have come across a really great mortgage broker who helps with all of that kind of stuff. Even some buyer's agents will help you get organised with what you're doing with your discretionary spending, because everyone recognises that to get started in property, you need to start. You need a little lump sum. You really do need to accumulate at least some kind of deposit. And you need to accumulate that. And you also, if this is your first home, you also need to start to look at the offerings that are out there to help people get into the market right now. So to give you an example of that, last year, I think it was only last year, wow, maybe even the end of the year before, but my daughter and her fiance, they're engaged now, they started, they both came together in their late 20s. Both traditionally weren't great savers, but when they saw the opportunity, they stopped. They made a pact to stop all of their silly spending. And I mean drinks, beers, cocktails, all the ordinary stuff, nice clothes, extra shoes, all the things we're eating out, all those extra things. They just stopped all of it for a while. At the same time, Jack was good enough to sell his car. Would you be prepared to sell a car? Would you be prepared to downsize from a more expensive car to a cheaper car if it meant you got that little lump sum together? And through that, then they took advantage of a free stamp duty offering. They also took advantage of loans that were available with no mortgage insurance. So all of these things saved them tens of thousands of dollars, and all they had to do is stay disciplined for a few months while they looked for property, and they ended up grabbing a really great unit. On top of that, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. They renovated that unit as soon as they got in there, and they've raised the value of the unit by more than $100,000. So getting a start from wherever you're at is the go, right? You've got to make a start. It doesn't happen by maintaining a very fluid, liquid, enjoyable, responsible, I just made up that word, existence. It comes from going, okay, here's the line in the sand. From today, I'm going to start to really take notice of how much money I'm spending. Every time I go down the road, I take my shopping bags. I don't just say to the cashier, yeah, I'll have a few bags. I can take them in the car, like all of those silly little things. Or you can just play the downsizing exchange. Instead of going out for dinner, I'll make dinner at home, but I will go out for coffee because we deserve to go out, right? So just exchange the larger expenses for the smaller expenses, and the smaller expenses for the zero expenses. And, you'll be amazed at how quickly you can start to accumulate a few funds. As soon as you've started to accumulate some funds, then you can breathe a little bit. In that, when I say breathe, everything feels better. Everything feels lighter. It's like when you clean out a room. You're like, I feel on top of this now. This feels great. So I think that's it. It's like, make a start. You have to make a start. And you have to start small where you're at and build equity. You really can't have everything at once. I just don't know anybody who's been able to do that unless they've been wealthy. But this talk is not about people that are starting with a lot of money. Starting with a lot of money, everything's easy with a lot of money. There's choices left, right, and center that you can make very, very differently and with a different passion if you have a lot of money available at your fingertips. But honestly, that's not most people, and it's certainly not most people inside my group who are renovating for profit to change their lives. So starting small and building equity is the key. Gradually build equity over time, not in 12 months. You will be able to do okay in 12 months, but man, 5 to 10 years, man, it's very, very exciting. It's very, very exciting to watch someone with determination beyond the normal. I say that because a lot of people will just give up, but it's just so beautiful to watch someone with determination just start small and then do a deal and then do another deal and then something else and just build and stay laser focused and don't get distracted by all this rubbish online about making money off the back of selling vitamins in an MLM scheme or just all of that stuff that just saps everybody's energy and is a waste of time. So when I say a waste of time, you've got a certain amount of time. You should always be focused on what is going to bring you the most income. So if that is your day job, great, keep working your day job. If your day job takes all of your time and your income is terrible, then you need to start to think about how you can either up the income in that same company by getting promoted or doing an extra course or doing overtime, whatever you want to do or changing, spots inside that company. You've got all these options to increase your income. So that's number one. Don't get complacent about your income. Or start a business. But if you're thinking about starting a business, which is why I love renovating so much, I want you to think of the energy out, the chances of success, and the money back. I see so many people jumping on all of this stuff online, like Amazon stores and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, even the best of the best, they might make it where they're making a few thousand per month. But most people selling products to make $10 per sale with all of the energy and all of the organization and all the setting up website, it's just a waste. Think about earning $50,000 to $100,000 with your energy each time. For most people, that's an income replacement strategy. And say if you could do that 3 times a year, well, you can do that with renovating, right? So think about what you're about to do to get a start. And that's why people who are starting very, very small can start in the renovation space and change their circumstances in a reasonably short time if they pick really good properties, if they renovate very, very well, and if the outcome is what they expect it to be and what I expect it to be, and if they keep moving, not lazy people. Lazy people just don't change their path at all. So that's it, right? So stick to what is going to bring you the most income. Understand that you're starting small, that it's going to take some time, that you will have to build equity, and that means you're going to have to build some value to your properties. And perhaps pay down credit card at the same time, perhaps increase your savings all at the same time. You have to attack this from all angles, not just one. And here's the thing, if you've got time, and even if this is in your own place, if you own your own place and you wanted to start by raising the equity in your own place, what a great place to start. Start by making improvements to your home that will significantly increase the value but not cost you much to do. And that might involve some sweat equity, which means you're going to be doing the legwork, you're going to be doing the painting, you're going to be rolling up your sleeves. But hey, that's all right. Here's the way I think. Sometimes people work for a boss, and a boss might say something like, you have to make 30 phone calls for me today before the end of business. I want you to ring 30 people and ask them this question, or ring 30 clients and tell them we're thinking about them. A boss will give work out like that, and most people will say, oh, okay, and they'll just do it. But some people will say, oh, renovating's hard because I rang 3 builders and they didn't turn up, so I had to ring another 3. And I think, yeah, well, ring another 3 and another 3. It's just fascinating what we choose not to do for ourselves, or what we think is a really big deal doing for ourselves, and yet we'll do for someone else in a heartbeat. So I want you to be really aware of where you're at, of what you think of your circumstances, of whether you believe the potential to change those circumstances, of whether you're prepared to do the small stuff first and really make those small things count. And I'm talking about the budget and the saving. And I'm talking about perhaps doing your own changes in your own house to raise some equity. I'm talking about starting small. And then I'm talking about growing bigger. So how do you grow bigger? The easiest way when you've got no money is to use somebody else's. So when I say other people's money, I'm talking about the banks, but I'm also talking about other renovators, property investors. I'm talking about private lenders. There is other people's money everywhere. And when the banks, if you go to the banks and they say, oh, no, we won't give you a loan, please don't take that as I can't afford to borrow money, or no one will lend me money, because that's just 4 banks out of perhaps 130 different lending institutions in this country. 4 of them have just said no. So instead of going, okay, that's it for me, it should be okay, what do I need to go and get these funds? What do I need to happen? Like, what do I need to action? If you have basic renovation skills, I'd love to see you build your brand around that. And it might sound a bit weird, particularly if you've not done this at a higher level, but I want to see you start to really build your local reputation around renovating, if it's something that you're starting with and you're starting small. And the reason I suggest that is that's a lot easier to get people to invest money with you and to believe in your capabilities as a renovator if you've got some proof. So take lots of photos, share those photos on social media if you want to, or just stockpile them in a folder on your phone, but take lots of photos of your befores and afters. You build your own little personal reputation around your ability to renovate, and you'll find getting income, getting money is a lot easier, is a lot easier. And that's part of it. A lot of the renovators inside my group no longer go to the banks. They will actually just go and reach out to either private lenders and get funds inside perhaps 7 to 10 days, or they'll go and, bankroll each other. So they'll offer their money to somebody else in the group in between their own renovations, and they'll end up with their money back plus a percentage of profit. So joint ventures can look like all sorts of things, but they work really, really well. They work very, very well too if you're a single lady and you meet another single lady at my workshop, and the two of you hit it off and you think we've got this common desire to get started, but singularly you probably won't be able to get going. But if you if you come together in a partnership, in a business partnership, a joint venture arrangement, then you can get a start because you've got 2 people's borrowing capacity. Perhaps you can go and do the renovation together, which is great, great fun. 4 hands are better than 2, and you'll get through it much faster. You'll have all of your own network that you can share. You can share networks, and, someone might say, I've got a tiler, and somebody else might say, that's great, I've got a plumber. And that's how a lot of people get going on very little to no money. So yes, it's possible. It comes down to having that big engine. It comes down to having that big desire, that fire in the belly that outstrips the subconscious feelings of just wanting to keep safe, to stay quiet, to go on holidays and forget about life for a while. Like, you have to fight for it. You really have to fight for it if you're starting with very little money. I think too, when you're thinking about investing, if you're starting with very little money, every move has to be a good one. Like, every move has to be a cracker. You can't afford to go backwards. You really can't afford to make mistakes. I don't even think you can afford to practice and see what the outcome is likely to be. I think you need to dive into it at the highest. It's really quite funny because it's the people with no money that say to me, oh, I can't afford your course. And I think you're the guys who can't afford to make a mistake. You're the guys who really need it, because number one, it's the quickest way to get there. Like, learning exactly what to do is the quickest way to get there. So it will expedite the outcome that you want, the results that you're after. At the same time, you really can't afford to make a mistake. Like, if you've got next to nothing, you don't want to end up in the negative after renovating. So you really need to work out exactly what you need to do and how you need to do it, and accomplish a really nice renovation without, the stress and the overwhelm, and certainly without overcapitalization, because that will just, it kills dreams. It really does. So yeah, get started with the learning. And I think learning and mindset and really good financial planning and really good breaking down goals into 6 monthly chunks, those things really matter. Everything's easy when you've got money. Like, I just smile when I see somebody in one of those House and Gardens magazines saying, hey, I just did this renovation. My interior designer was such and such. My builder was such and such. And it cost, $1.5 million to do. And I'm on the beachfront in Manly. And I think, well, anyone could do that. Like, there's zero challenge in that. Zero. That's just, you're just writing checks, right? So there's zero challenge in that. The truth is that people I work with aren't like that, including me. That's not where I began, which is why I can relate to everybody's stories so well, right? Because we started with, nothing. We started with no family help, no deposits, no anything. So we had to start doing exactly what I'm asking you guys to do yourselves. I don't want you youngsters or mums and dads of the young people to allow them to listen to all this stuff about, the wage to mortgage ratio now is out of control and the gap's so much bigger they'll never get started. So here's the only difference that makes is they might not be able to get started in an area of their choice, of their first choice. They might have to move out an hour from where they grew up, or an hour from their favourite town, or 2 hours from their favourite town, so that they can get started on a property. I love it when people get started like that. They get going, they throw their heart and their soul in it, particularly if they don't want to be in that area forever. And they just get through that one project, and then that one project becomes their bouncing board, really. It becomes the basis for their next deal. And their next deal might be in the area that they can afford to live. So people thinking that they're going to do this in one jump and never move, in reality, if you're starting with very little money, you're going to be either moving a few times. If you're moving into the properties, you're also DIYing while you're living there, or you're going to be quite actively renovating if you need the income and you need it fast. But when you read stories of people, Steve McKnight, I spoke at his event not long ago, and his first book was 0 to 130 properties in, I can't remember, Steve, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. It was a really short amount of time. And everyone looked at that title and thought, how can it possibly be? He used exactly the same strategies I've just spoken about to you guys. Downsize spending, upsize income, go and get a second job, go and, speak to your boss about a pay rise, go and work more hours, just increase the income, decrease the spending, increase the savings, make a start, make sure you buy really good, healthy properties. Please do not ever, ever get tempted. And if you are tempted, give me a call. Like, you find my phone number, it's still on my website. So give me a call. But do not get tempted to buy a property off the plan. Please do not. We're seeing lots of disasters where builders are going broke. That's just one component of it. But the most important thing is you'll buy that one property and you'll be stuck for a long, long, long time. The banks will love you because you'll be stuck with that property while you pay it off for 35 years. So please do not do that kind of stuff. Start small, add value. Go and either sell it or keep it, draw the equity out. Go and do it again, add value, sell it or keep it, or draw the equity out and rent it out. Like, just build that way. It's small, it requires effort, it requires focus, it requires tenacity, it requires a never say die attitude. It is 100% possible, and you can go from zero to hero in years, in a few short years, if you really apply yourself. It is the one way. It is the best way, and it's the way that guys write those books that go from 0 to 130. Or there's a book I've got on my table over there says, I own 30 properties before 30 or something like that. Some young bloke wrote. 100%. It's true. It's true. But he did exactly the same as I did, and my husband Brett did, and anybody who got started that I know with very little money, and that's just get stuck in and push everything else aside for a little while and just absolutely do your best to think about money you spend on presents and going out and clothes. Just question every cent you spend, knowing that it's not forever, knowing that it's just to get a start. And once you get the ball rolling and then your home's grow in value beyond what your income grows, so exciting when that happens. You end up with multiple streams of income. It's just, that's the outcome that is 100% doable and achievable for anybody who's very, very determined to keep at it. Honestly, guys, it all starts with education. It really does. And if you want to come and join me, you are really welcome to do that inside Renovation Mastery. You do not want to go backwards. Every move has to be strategic and it has to be a winner. Please forget about any anxiety about borrowing money and debt, because the debt you take on, or financial, what am I going to do? A disclaimer, this is not financial advice. Please seek your accountant's advice. But in my opinion, any debt you take on for the greater good of returning the value of that money and then some from a profitable renovation or a really good property deal is money well worth borrowing. So that's all I'll say. There are people out there who say, I'm killing it because I don't have any debt. And I think you have got opportunity galore sitting at your fingertips that you are not using. You don't have your money working for you. You don't have your money making more money. Making money is just not tied up to our ability to toil hard. Making money is more than that. It is about getting yourself in a financial situation where your properties and your investments are making money for you. And that's when you just don't go backwards. So it's called OPM. You'll hear the topic here and there using OPM, which stands for other people's money. So that's the banks, that's joint venture partners. It's all the things I spoke about earlier, but it is some kind of debt. It's taking on some kind of debt, and understand the power of taking on debt and putting that debt to a good higher purpose, not buying a boat, not buying a new car, but putting that debt to a good higher purpose that's going to return you more than that debt's going to cost you. And last but not least, I don't know why people have this desire to pay down their mortgage or pay off their mortgage before they start investing. I think that comes from possibly somebody around them, or maybe even their own childhood beliefs about being safe. Like once you've paid off your own home, you own your own home and that's it. You're going to slow down your ability to create wealth to an almost impossibly slow position by paying off a mortgage and then maybe going and getting an investment property and then paying that down. By the time you guys use that strategy to do that, I would have bought 10 houses. So that's the truth of it. It's a very, very slow, old school thinking way. I have to pay off my mortgage before I can go and do an investment property. I call BS on that. Please don't. I'll go into financial advice and get in trouble again. Belinda Smith, in Belinda's opinion, not a good idea. So guys, thanks so much for listening in. I know this has been a little bit of a different episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. I have all of these thoughts inside of me sometimes, and I probably should let them out for you guys to hear more often. And let me know what you thought of this episode, and I can do many more like it on different topics. But here's my outgoing note of positivity. If you're starting with next to no money or no money at all, never give up. Never think that it's not possible, because it is. 100% it is. If you're worried or you want to speak to me about your current situation, you know where to find me, guys. I really don't mind talking to people on the phone. I really like people, weird like that. And if I can help you in some way, I'm really willing to do that. So thanks, guys. See you on the next session of More Than Renovating.